So twisted fringe is very easy to do, and it might be a little tedious if you have to go around an entire blanket or something like that, but it eliminates the need for cutting the yarn and making a tassel in each stitch. And so let's look at this continuous working method of adding embellishment to the edges of our project. So the first thing you want to do is you want to get a straight edge. You want to use a ruler. You can tape a tape measure down like I've done to my working mat here. You can use the edge of your laptop if it's sitting in front of you. Whatever you use, though, make sure it's stationary and it won't move, so it will give you the closest measurement every time you pull this yarn out, okay? Because if you don't pull out to the same length every time, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with uneven fringe as you see here. I did not do a very good job of pulling out to the exact length I needed, so my fringe is not straight. So this is just a sample, and let's get rid of that and go back and start over, and let's see if we can get it a little bit straighter this time. So right here, all I've done is I've created a small swatch of 2 rows of half double crochet just to give me something, a base to hold on to, with which to work my fringe onto. So let's pretend this is the end of my project. I've reached the last stitch. Normally you would chain and turn and keep going. In the case that we're adding fringe, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn, but I'm not going to chain. Or you can just pull it out from this side, but you're going to pull a long loop out to the desired length that you want. And here is the next important point to remember, is that the length that you pull your fringe out to, your resulting fringe length will only be about 1/3. Okay, let me say that again. So if I pull my working loop out to 14 inches, my resulting fringe length, the length of the actual fringe, will be about 1/3 of that. So pulling it out to 14 inches, after I twist, it's going to result in a fringe that is approximately 5 inches long, maybe between 5 and 6 inches long, if you can see that right there, okay? So if you pull out to 12 inches, your resulting fringe is going to be somewhere around 4 inches long. So keep that in mind. All right, so I have pulled my loop out to 14 inches because I like fringe that's around 5.5 inches, sometimes 6 inches long. I'm going to remove my hook, insert my finger into the end of the loop, and right now I'm holding on to this end piece so my loop doesn't stretch as I twist, okay? So I'm pinching that part. Then I'm going to twist toward myself 40 times. And 40. It does not matter which way you twist. I just suggest that you do it the same direction for each piece of fringe, just for the sake of consistency, so it all looks uniformed. And the number of twists, there does not seem to be a consensus. There are some patterns may tell you 20, others may tell you 30. I prefer to do 35 to 40 times. On this one, we're just going to do 40, and you can see how tight the strand has gotten. Okay, so after you're through twisting, because we're using our finger, when we remove our finger, you're going to have kind of a large loop on the end. So what I like to do is I twist several times this end loop to make sure it doesn't leave a big gap when I go to slip stitch it back in. All right, so after I do that, I insert my hook back into that end loop. Okay, let's pull this back in front of the Kim. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch into the same stitch that I pulled this initial loop from. So I'm going to pull it up and make sure that I slip stitch right into the end of my loop. Now it's going to leave it kind of weirdly torqued. All you do is you pull on it a couple of times, it will stretch it out, and you'll have a nice piece of fringe here. Then you immediately slip stitch to the next stitch. And you are ready now to pull out your next loop. So I did 14 inches, so I'm going to pull out to 14 inches again, as such. Remove my hook. And twist. And that's 40. I'm going to remove my finger. Give it a few little twists to go in the same direction as my original thread. Reinsert my hook. Slip stitch to the exact same stitch that I pulled the loop from. And slip stitch into the next stitch. And give my little fringe a pull until it remains straight. Sometimes what I like to do is I'll get a little darning needle and just stick in there and pull until it straightens out. And then there you have it. You have 2 pieces of fringe made, and you will keep on doing that for each stitch across, or for as many stitches that you want your fringe on. When you reach the end, you just bind off and weave in your end. And there you have it. Twisted fringe.